Welcome, everyone. My name is Susan Patterson. I'm the director through God's Grace Ministry, a ministry that hosts events and workshops like this throughout the year to equip the faith community to fight human trafficking. There are many pimps who want to get out of the life, or pimps who have gotten out of prison because this is a very dark life, but they look around and they can't find anyone to walk with them to create a new life in Jesus. Our facilitator, Bishop Gale Oliver, found the pimp who was exploiting his niece and talked him into letting her go. That began his journey in bringing Jesus to the pimps. Without further ado, let's join the discussion where we can learn how to minister to pimps. One of our speakers today is Bishop Gale Oliver. He just led us in prayer. Bishop Gale Oliver has been involved in street outreach to both prostituted people on the street as well as pimps for the last 17 years. And so he has a lot of knowledge regarding the subject. He's very involved with this community in the anti-human trafficking movement. Armand King, who's our other speaker, wrote this book, Raised in Pimp City, The Uncut Truth about Domestic Human Sex Trafficking, which is available on Amazon. And Armand is one of those people who raised himself up out of homelessness and being a youth and, making a few decisions that were not life building in his life, and learning from that and coming back to his community and really sharing with people in a way where, especially the youth, about how destructive the path is, whether it's pimping or prostitution, and has turned many youth around. And he's going to talk about the dynamics that lead to pimping. Let's hear from Bishop Gale Oliver on how he got his niece away from her trafficker.
Good morning, and thank you for this opportunity to share, amen. And once again, we thank you, Sister Susan, for this opportunity and the introduction. I am Bishop Gale Oliver of Santa Ana, California, and it's very interesting how I got involved. God was already placed me in position, and I didn't know it. So a friend of mine who used to be a sergeant and who is now a pastor called me and asked me if I wanted to go through training to learn how to fight against sex trafficking and human trafficking. And I said, oh yeah, for sure. Went through training, and the week that I finished and completed training, that weekend, let me say, after I completed training that weekend, me and my mom and dad and father just left church, and we were eating lunch, and my mother says, oh, your brother said that your niece is afraid of her boyfriend. So I'm like, oh, what do you mean she's afraid of her boyfriend? And so I kept eating, and then that thought would not allow me to, that thought would not leave my mind. So I asked again. I said, Mom, what do you mean that she's afraid of her boyfriend? That makes no sense. What are you talking about? And so as I started thinking about the training I had gone through, we learned about 3 different types of pimps: Romeo pimp, gorilla pimp, and CEO pimp. And so as I started thinking, I said, wait a minute, that sounds like it could possibly be a Romeo pimp, right? So I called my niece immediately, and she was at one of these not grocery stores, but anyway, she was at a store shopping with her mother. And I asked her, I said, what is this I hear that you're afraid of your boyfriend? And she didn't want to talk. She was quiet. It's the way she does. So I asked her a few times, what's going on? And why are you afraid of your boyfriend? It makes no sense. How come you haven't just broken up with him if you're afraid of him, right? And so she was quiet, and I'm asking, and I'm getting upset because I'm like, okay, something's going on and you're not telling me. So I just asked her, I said, is your boyfriend, does he call himself being a pimp or something? And she started crying, and she said, hold on. She left out of the store to talk to me, so her mom wouldn't hear us. And so I said, is this dude calling himself a pimp, right? And she didn't want to answer the question. And I said, where is he right now? So she didn't want to tell me where he was, but she did tell me, I got it out of her to find out which store she was at, what street the store was on. And she told me she had dropped him off at a bar, but she didn't want to tell me which bar or anything like that. So I just said, well, where you located? So I said, okay. So the major cross streets off the 55 is Chapman. I said, okay, did you get off on Chapman or something? She said, yeah, she dropped him off at a bar, but she don't know where. Off of Chapman. I said, no problem. We got the bill, paid the bill, got in the car immediately, drove over, got on the freeway, got off on Chapman. I know Chapman. So anyway, I just had it in my mind, said I was going to check all the bars till I found him. So glory be to God, the first bar I went into, there he was at the front table watching sports. And so I introduced myself to him and let him know that, I asked him, what is my niece doing afraid? Why is she afraid of you? I said, do you call yourself a pimp? And of course, he didn't want to answer any questions. And I looked at him. I said, well, let me help you. You need to change your ways. I said, you need to leave my niece alone. I told him, I said, I'm saved and I'm a pastor and I know God is with us right now because this would go another way back in the days. So I know God is with us. I said, but my youngest brother, he's saved, but God's not done with him yet. So I said, if he finds out what's going on, the conversation may not be as pretty. And so I could see he had a little arrogance and pride, and so anyway, I said, you know what? I asked him if he knew Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. Okay, he said no. I said, do you have any family members that are saved? He said that his grandfather is a pastor out of Los Angeles. I said, okay, I have a funny feeling your grandfather's praying for you. I said, and so I wanted to know what's going on, and I also wanted to let him know how serious I was. And so I asked him a question. I said, I said, you have any sisters? He said, yes, I have 7. I said, well, how would you feel if somebody was pimping your sisters out? And he did not respond. He just kept looking at TV. I said, okay. I said, well, let me bring it a little closer to home. I said, how would you feel if somebody was pimping your mother out? And then he looked at me. And when he looked at me, I could tell. I said, wait a minute, your mom's a prostitute? And he said, yeah. I said, well, that's why you think it's okay to be a pimp, because your mom is out there? I said, let me tell you something. I said, as a pimp, you're either going to get killed or locked up for life. I said, but it's not going to be pretty. I said, so your mom's doing it. What makes you think it's okay for you to pimp other girls out just because your mom is doing it, right? And so then he started responding with a little bit of anger. He said, what am I supposed to do? I've been to jail and I can't get a job. So number one, I want you to understand that was his solution to not being able to get a job and make money. So I said, well, number one, that's a lie from the pit of hell. You can get a job. Like I said, many people have been to jail and prison and have a job. And so I let him know. I said, jail doesn't keep you, or prison doesn't keep you from getting a job. I said, I've been there. My brother's been there. My dad's been there. We got plenty of family members that's been to jail, been to prison, and everybody has a job. So that's a lie from the pit of hell. You can't be sitting at home playing PlayStation and trying to learn how to be a pimp and wonder why you can't find a job. You can find a job, and I encourage you to find a job. And then, so I said, well, I want you to know how serious I am. My niece, I said, I better not hear that you even been around her and that she's afraid of you. I said, I better not hear that again. And I'm telling you now, if my youngest brother finds out, you're gonna be in trouble physically. I said, so I'm trying to help you. I know this is not by accident. So I asked him, I said, well, do you know that Jesus Christ died on the cross for your sins, was buried and rose on the 3rd day? So he didn't answer yes or no. He acted like he didn't believe me. I said, no problem. I've been there, done that. I know, and got a t-shirt. I know how it works. One plants, one waters, but God gets increase. So then I prayed for him and asked God to save his soul. And so, and it was a quick prayer. I said, I just asked, Lord, save his soul and do a quick work in his heart like he did a thief on the cross. So when I finished praying, I asked him again, okay, do you believe that Jesus died on the cross for your sins, was buried and rose on the 3rd day? He didn't respond. I said, well, I want you to know I truly believe, and you need to talk to your grandfather. I said, I truly believe he's probably praying for you. And so I said, anyway, do we understand each other? said, I better not hear that my niece, that you're still trying to chase after my niece. And I said, do you call yourself, I said, you call yourself a Romeo pimp, right? Right. I said, no, you're not a CEO pimp because you don't look like you got two quarters to rub together. And I know you're not a gorilla pimp, okay? Because you just don't seem tough enough to me to be a gorilla pimp. So that leaves a Romeo pimp. I said, so you're trying to trick and brainwash my niece to make her think this is a boyfriend-girlfriend relationship. So I want you to know I understand what's going on, and it's not going to be pretty if you don't stop what you're doing. I said, so anyway, I walked out of the bar. And as soon as the door shut behind me, I just stopped and I looked up, and God dropped it in my spirit that pimps need Jesus too. And when he dropped that in my spirit, it's like I was frozen. I couldn't move. I just started, tears just start coming out of my eyes because I never really thought about saving the pimps. I thought about saving the girls, because we started that project trying to get the girls off the streets. But then God ministered to me and said, pimps need Jesus too. And for us to stop trying to cut the toes off the giant and cut the head off the giant. So you help one girl, 2 or 3 girls get off the street, that pimp replaces those 2 or 3 with other girls. So if you start leading the pimps to Christ, get the pimps saved, now the pimps can join in, ex-pimps can join in and help us prevent other girls from hitting the streets, minister to the pimps and the girls, and they can be on our side to help others get saved and delivered. So that's where God blessed me right there, right then and there, that pimps need Jesus too.
Amen. So Armand, why don't you share with us the kind of dynamics that lead one to become a pimp, and what works to discourage youth, what works to, discourage or, encourage pimps to get out of the life. Go ahead.
Absolutely. First and foremost, let me, I can't talk about trafficking as if there's one big umbrella over all forms of trafficking. There are very, very different forms of trafficking, pimping, and prostitution. I am not an expert at all of them. I'm an expert at one form, and that is what I grew up knowing as the gang, the life, pimping, and prostitution that mostly came from impoverished communities throughout America, and primarily committed by, associated with Black males, Black and brown males, and women of all nationalities. And that's where I am speaking from today. And so there's familiar trafficking, there's foreign trafficking, there's a bunch of kinds of trafficking. And as you know, like when you go to the doctor and you have an ailment, and they get to the root, they got to know what they're looking at, what they're facing. So we can't just shoot out there blind. We're just helping with trafficking, or I'm just here to speak on trafficking in general, because we won't get the solutions and the cures that we want. So when asked what leads men into trafficking, I'm gonna speak for myself and my peer group, and because I am a former pimp that was in the game as a 16-year-old boy. Previous to that, I was a homeless kid. Previous to that, I was a gang-involved kid. I was a reflection of a lot of young men that come from impoverished communities with a lack of opportunities and resources. And that is what leads us into those lifestyles, including, since a kid, the same thing that led the women into the lifestyle that we were in. It's not the movie Taken or these other movies where you see girls forced or kidnapped into the game, into the life. The girls that went into the game and the life when I was a kid, they were my friends. They were girls that went to school with me through elementary, middle school, high school. And, coming up from poor communities, when you don't have or see another way out, and this is the option that's presented to you, you go that route. I could have easily been a drug dealer, which I was at a moment. I could easily been a car thief or whatever. But most of the root cause is a lack of opportunities, resources, and trying to find a way out. And really, they say money is the root of all evil. I beg to differ and say the lack of money is the root of most evil. And these kids, I was never a bad person. My friends weren't bad people. And in direct connection to the church, we were in the church. It's not bringing pimps to Jesus. We started off with Jesus. What would it took to keep us there is the question. You know, so at somewhere down the line, we were lost. Our moms who had already been, usually people who go to church from my community that in my opinion, have been there, done that, and that street life didn't work. Then you look for that option. You get that come to Jesus moment and you go to the church. Well, those were our parents that came from the crack epidemic, that came from poverty, that came from trying other stuff. We were at the church, but the church didn't keep us. The streets were attractive. And this earlier, Susan, I had heard you had mentioned a couple ways, reasons people get drawn back into the life. They said over 50% of women that come out go back in. And you named 2 reasons, but I would like to say which you were 100% correct. But the main reason that people return back to the life and women return back because they've seen better options there. They may have came out with a good song, or they were at that moment where they wanted to transition, but then there was nothing to replace it with. There was nothing to monetarily compensate them for life. I hope I answered your question. I think I missed a point, but
no, you absolutely answered my question for the first part. The second part was when you talk to youth that you see are on the path of destruction, whether it's, pimping or whatever. You've done a lot of work in this area. What has worked to discourage them from staying on that path and making better choices?
Oh, absolutely. So for one, being relatable to them, understanding them, not coming from a place of condescending or looking down upon them, but actually being a lived experience person who could point out, I call it transferable skills. Oftentimes these youth, they get into these lifestyles and they don't know how to get out, and they almost brainwash themselves to think they have to stay in and there's no other option for them but to gangbang, sell drugs, pimp, prostitute. So what I found to really work is showing them what they were doing illegally. There were ways they can do things legally with those same skills, same tactics and attributes they were using for the wrong, they can do for the right. And once they're doing it for the right, they don't have to look over their shoulder anymore. The violence ceases, the chances of incarceration. And really with pimps specifically now that come from my subculture of pimping and prostitution, I show them that the time in jail they can get. Because oftentimes they don't realize the consequences are detrimental. You don't even have to have a victim. I'm a court expert in the federal and state courts right now. Just my recent case I just worked, this young man had no victim at all and just received 25 years for a phone conversation about pimping. These laws aren't back in the day when I was younger, 30 years ago, and you would get a slap on the wrist for if you were even caught pimping. Not today. You can make the wrong post on social media and receive a lengthy jail sentence. That's how so once people are presented with that, and they need to know their risk versus reward. And like Bishop said, that young man that he spoke to looked like he didn't have 2 nickels to rub together. And most of the time that's the case because these people are not making money like that. They need another option and then provide that option. I can't go to this young person and say, I want you to stop pimping. I want you to stop selling drugs. I want you to stop doing what you grew to do and to make money for yourself, to get by without a replacement. Okay, I stopped selling, now what? I stopped pimping, now what? And if you're not prepared with the now what, you're just saying that you're just talking good right now. But the more than likely this person is involved because this was their means of making money, not this evil monster that I just want to take and abuse people. This became an option for their life and somehow got stuck on that cycle.
That was awesome. So I'd like you to just continue a little bit about the now what. What are the kinds of jobs you introduce them to that they could do having gotten out of jail? Because I know that you've worked in this. So
we're talking specifically out of jail.
Yeah.
And that's with anybody. But one thing for sure, when I'll speak for San Diego County, where I'm from, and when you get out of jail, probation, they don't provide you. You got to fight for a list of job opportunities for that will hire a felon. And 9 times out of 10, those jobs are Circle K, Walmart. And if you were coming from the game or the life, or you were making a little bit of money, those jobs don't seem attractive, not to the man or the woman that was in the game. So I like to introduce them to not just jobs too, introduce them to jobs that are paying a livable wage, because if anybody here is from California, it is expensive to live here. And that one job is not going to make it. You'll be, what do you call it, JOB, just over broke. And now you're fighting for your second job, your second hustle, and you will be lured back into the game. I know a lot of people who are in boyfriend, girlfriend relationships that do make money through prostitution, escorting, but also have jobs doing that on the side. So I'd like to show them that, but even more so, if you were in the game, if you were in that lifestyle, you have an entrepreneur mentality. So don't just stop at here's a job. No, I try to show you here what you were doing, those like transferable skills, sales, management, the different skills that you had that you were applying that way. You can start your own business. So find out their passion. What do they like? What are they interested in? And then if you're not capable of doing it, because you might not know yourself, you need to bring some entrepreneurs who can tap into that for them, and to show them how they can turn their passion into payment, into money, and then once, like with the organization I launched in 2012, the nonprofit called Paving Great Futures, me and my co-founders, we realized, what was it that took me out of the game? What was it that took my partners out of the game? And that was finances. That was when we started running our own businesses. Once you start applying yourself that way, you don't have time to think about anything else. And you actually are pursuing your dreams. You're having fun doing it. You're making money. That's what distracted us from going back into the game.
Got it. So a couple comments I want to make here is, first of all, I want to thank the people who've contributed to the chat about programs that are being offered in your area. That's really encouraging in Delaware and across the country for survivors. But for the purposes of this event, I want to start to look at pimps, and with what Armand talked about, is we want to get them out of the life so they stop exploiting people, and they're not going to get out of the life unless they see a way to make a decent living. And there are entities that are, creating opportunities for people who have been through jail, whether it was from gang banging or pimping or whatever. So for instance, in Orange County, Electricians Union raised the money for scholarships to attend electrician school, because that is a job you can have where you can have a felony on your record. You just can't work in a high security job like a government building or something like that, but you could work most places. You can be an entrepreneur and make a lot of money. And what they did is they partnered with an entity in Los Angeles who works with gang members and to help them get out of the life. So this is something that, in my experience, once you put the idea in people's heads, they'll jump to that opportunity to contribute. And one of the things that churches has going for it as a resource is they know people from all walks of life. They do. And once people see the connection between what they do and how their skill set can make a difference in the lives of people who have been both pimps as well as survivors of human trafficking, they will step up. And they will. It's just a matter of educating your audience. So what I've seen happens, and this is my suggestion, is churches do awareness events all the time. But what they're doing awareness events on is cyber exploitation. How to protect your daughter, mainly your daughter, from ever being victimized, either, from a pedophile or a trafficker or someone like that. And then the event's over. They don't spend time at the end because they don't understand it. On let's talk about what we can do about all this. Let's go to the source issues. Let's talk about finding jobs for survivors so they don't return to the life. Let's talk about, all kinds of things they can do. How do we support nonprofits? How do we reduce demand? I mentioned in the beginning that there's a program being developed for churches where they could talk to buyers, men who are buying, so that they never buy again. That's an opportunity, not looking at porn anymore. The church is the perfect entity for that, because porn is considered a moral issue. It's not something that's going to be talked about in schools because it's, quote, a moral issue. And there are programs like Celebrate Recovery and the Conquer series that gets men off of porn. The Conquer series has a 98% success rate of getting men off of porn. So these are the kinds of things at the end of our awareness events we need to be addressing. And if we did, because I do it, so I know people come up to me, I am swarmed at the end by men who say, I own a business. Tell me more about this. Who can I connect with and hire survivors? Who can I connect with and hire people who have gotten out of jail? I just don't understand who do I connect with to make this happen? I have jobs. And this one man agreed with what you said, Armand. He said, I'm willing to bet these guys have great selling skills, great entrepreneurial skills. They would be perfect for the kind of job I have in mind. How do I find them? How do I connect with them? So it's a matter of educating the community about how we can connect, because we're not going to end human trafficking unless the community steps up. And the church has one of the most direct accesses to the community. All right,
And
so go ahead, please.
The church is a community. So I would start here, because I know a lot of times these conversations with churches is how do we go out and get them? We and them, when you are them. I go back, the pimps are in your congregation, or they're either the youth that are going to go that route. They're men that the buyers are sitting in that congregation now. You talk about porn. I don't know if you've seen the stats, and I don't know how true they are. Don't want to quote them, but the statistics of men that are in the church watching.
Yes,
those
65%.
Those people don't just, let's stop looking. I know I like to do this finger pointing thing. Let's stop pointing out with the index and start using the thumb. Okay, because if you start with the base that you actually have, you don't have control of the outside world, and we've seen that. It's not just attracting pimps to the church. The churches are having issues attracting people, period, to the church, youth, period, to the church. But start right there at home. And there's enough churches internally have those conversations with each other, have those, because that one person that's in the church that's now getting educated has brothers, uncles, nieces, nephews. They're in the world. Each one of the people in your congregation needs to now be an ambassador of this word to their people around them. And then eternally, starting with the youth. Me and my friends, we were in the church before, and then right after church, we couldn't wait till it was over because mom took us there. We're going to get high after church because we didn't want to disrespect or smell bad. We got high after. I've ran youth groups in church, and they're in there talking gang while their parents are in there worshiping. They were in my youth group, and I would catch, because I knew little gangbang terms or this or that. The kids know they're playing good for you there. Educate them while you have them, please. So let's stop looking out. Let's look internally and give that gospel that we're looking to give to others to ourselves.
Amen. Yeah. Can I intercede real quick?
Yeah, I was going to call on you. Go ahead, please.
No, this is real interesting. And one of the things we have to realize, you do have 3 different types of pimps at least, and different people get involved for different reasons. I've met rich folks that already have the money become a pimp. There's somebody that's very well known to the world. He was already a multi-millionaire. Everybody knows who he is, but he became a pimp because as a child, in that movie, I think it's called The Mac, there was just something in him. It was one of his fantasies. Oh, I got to become a pimp one day. And so he did become a pimp probably for about a year or so like that. Another pimp told him, look, man, you don't need to be in this game. What are you doing? So he got delivered out of it, almost lost his wife and everything. And then I have one of the gentlemen that I ministered to. He became a pimp because, like Armand was saying, that was the thing to do. If you didn't make money, that was another way to make money. And so he got in, but it was God who set up the circumstances so he can be delivered from the lifestyle, because some other pimps trying to take him out and kill him, but God saved the soul and saved him from that, let me say. And so he even wrote a book called From Pimp to Preacher. And then one of the pimps that I ministered to from Hawaii, he was what you call a CEO pimp. He had the money and everything, but it was prestigious, and you look real good as a pimp with perm and all that. So it was something he idolized. But I didn't say bring church to the pimps, bring Jesus to the pimps. I'm not talking about religion. I'm talking about relationships. All the pimps I know that have been delivered, I can see God's signature on that God did something to deliver them. Sometimes we can get caught up in things. Some things we can quit, and some things, if God doesn't deliver us, we're hit. I agree with Brother Armand. We need to preach and teach the word of God in the house of God. See what I'm saying? Can't water down the gospel. You got to preach the word. But then also, when you're anointed to minister to other people, like an evangelist, they're anointed to go outside of the four walls and get out there in the streets and minister to those lost souls, right? So there's a lot of different pimps or a lot of different reasons why people get involved. So we can't put everything in one little box. And I saw a lot of people chatting, to let us know about the different organizations, nonprofits that are set up and everything. But when you're involved, glory be to God, God has blessed you to be able to help. Sometimes another person may be able to minister to other times, see what I'm saying? But we all have to collectively come together, and it is the word of God. Amen. I don't want to bring my flesh to the game. See what I'm saying? I can't say, people say, hey, you're a pimp, you're going to hell, get out the game, right? But if I just minister the love of God, and God has these solutions to all of our problems, and it's just like if you minister to those who are on drugs, okay? So you can lead them to Christ, but if there's no discipleship going on, you can lead somebody out of pimping, but if there's no discipleship going on, so with through the power of the Holy Spirit, we can ask God, Lord, give me discernment, stir up that person's gift, let them know what you called them to do. Brother Armand made a good point. So it's not that these pimps are crazy or stupid or blah, blah, blah. They have gifts. Everyone has at least one gift. And so now let's find out what your gift is so you can do what God has called you to do. Okay. One thing we know you're not supposed to do is getting your pimp on, right? Right. And some of the girls used to get involved in prostitution because they like to make the money. They've been tricked by their boyfriends, but you have many that want to get out of the lifestyle. See what I'm saying? And it's a process. I'll end with this right quick. People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. See what I'm saying? So if I really care about you, I want to help you. I'm not just going to minister to you and tell you that pimping is wrong, prostitution is wrong. What can we do to get you out of the lifestyle? What is it that God has gifted you to do? So if you are like a CEO pimp, okay, you're a business owner, you're an entrepreneur. Now let's do it the right way.
Like Bishop, thank you for saying that. 100% relationships. It's not, okay, you're wrong, let me just get you out of that. So I'm you, and really a lot of that mentality come from ego within self, and you feel I want to be the savior. Like build that relationship. I'm thinking about a tactic. One of my pastor friends here in San Diego, he shared the pulpit one day, all three on mainstream Sunday services, hundreds of people in the audience. He took a side seat. Many pastors won't do that. He took a side seat and had myself and a survivor of human trafficking up there to teach the congregation about it and talk about the realism of the life. Every session there were of three, there was people from the audience who were impacted directly that wouldn't have known had the conversation not come up, and that came up forward thanking us for this. And at one moment there was a pimp and his prostitute, or the two that were stuck in the game together, for lack of better terms. They came up to us and let us know they were in right now. But if we hadn't had, they didn't know this conversation. They didn't come because of the conversation. They were coming to the church because they needed a way. And many times they're coming to the church. When you have those guests, don't just take guests lightly. Oh, we feel good, we got extra guests today. No, wrap around those people, love on those people. Sometimes things happen in an individual's life in the game. It's not all roses. And they hit the best time to reach somebody in the game and to help them get out, pimp, prostitute, is when they're at those low moments, when they did get arrested. So ministry within the jail system, amazing place to reach people. Their minds are open to think and actually receive you, not out there on the street corner where they might be high, might be in the midst of running and don't have time for you. But when they're locked down, they got time to hear you then. Okay, when they come to your church service, they got time to hear you then, and they came to you. And then one thing I've noticed, and that's myself, and I'm speaking on my personal experience, we lose friends. Funeral services are another crucial time to reach people. Funeral service, incarceration, birth of children are some key moments in individuals' life where they have that come to Jesus moment, and your words will be extremely valuable and penetrate their soul. So you don't use those moments as well, and don't neglect the people that are coming to your church, because they're not coming with a sign, I'm a prostitute, I'm a drug addict. But they are coming because they're looking for something. So I would work on the church having answers outside. The word is an answer, yes indeed, but now tangible answers on side of that: jobs, workforce development, relationships, wraparound love systems. Sometimes they just need food. It's different things, but have that wraparound system within the church. I digress. Bishop, I seen you with the hot mic.
No, that was outstanding. Thank you very much. And it leads me to the next subject I want to talk about is what kind of person, you've already both touched on it, would be a good person to minister to pimps. So one of the things you both touched on is coming in with the savior attitude, isn't going to work. Both of you grew up in such a way that you understand street life, both of you. So my question is, if someone didn't understand street life, they're just whatever, a do-gooder, they want to reach out to pimps or whatever, what would be your advice to them? Because it's not, in my experience, if you don't know what you're doing, this may not be safe. You know what I mean? So I want to, kind of talk about that, because there are people who want to help and like that, but they may not be the right person to help. And there's tons of things you can do to fight human trafficking. It doesn't have to be this. So I'd like you to address that.
Susan,
that is awesome.
Bishop, can you say what you were going to say? Because I was curious. I seen you with the hot mic earlier. Can you finish that thought? We'll go there, please.
Go ahead, please.
Amen. Thank you very much. That is a very powerful question. And let me go back here. I was able to minister to people in general, whether they be pimps, gangbangers. So God blessed me to minister to pimps, gangbangers, the women that were caught up in human trafficking or sex trafficking. I was able to minister to people, but I was not prepared to go to the streets. It was never in my thoughts to go, chasing after the girls or chasing after the pimps. I pray for them, that was just automatic. But until I got trained and I learned the different types of pimps, I've learned the different ways that girls get caught up. I learned why a lot of girls are no longer called prostitutes. They're now called victims, because they're forced to, some may have been tricked or brainwashed to get out there, but now once they get out there, now they're forced to stay out there because a certain type of pimps will not allow them to leave. The Romeo pimp that called himself trying to turn my niece out, his strategy was very simple. He would take her everywhere she had to go. He would take her to the job, to the family gatherings, because he wanted to learn her whereabouts. See what I'm saying? He wanted to know where her parents lived, her siblings. They want to know where all your family members live. So once they make their move, now they say this: well, we know where your mom lived. If you try to escape, we're going to kill your mother. We're going to kill your children. So a lot of the girls want to get out, but now they're afraid to get out. But if you become friends with them and you're just ministering, and I say become friends, you love where they are on the front end. You're not judging. You just want to minister to them according to how God leads you. Now, this goes right back to people don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. So now that door is open to minister to them. Brother Armand made a good point as well. When you have the opportunity to minister to someone who's in jail, minister to someone who's in prison, minister to someone who just gets out of jail or just gets out of prison, their ears are usually wide open, because if you think jail is fun, something's wrong with you. It's more than just pimping or prostitution. They may have, there's mental issues attached to that. And so most people, they go to jail, their number one prayer is what? Lord, get me out of here, right? Now, another prayer is that they don't talk about to everybody is, Lord, not only get me out, but keep me out. I don't want to go back. And so therefore, there must be we must have answers to their problems, solutions to the problems, but we got to also understand carpe diem, seize the day, seize the opportunity to minister to a person. When you have the opportunity to minister to them, you know, seize that opportunity, because they're going to be open to hear you, especially, like I said, incarcerated, is coming out. Maybe their best friend just got hit upside the head with 25 years. So that person may be ready to listen. And thank God, Brother Armand is not afraid to share his testimony, because that will help a lot of people realize what I'm doing is wrong. I agree. And that brother may know something that could help me get out of this lifestyle. And so a lot of times you do have to tear down that pride, that ego, and just meet somebody where they're at. Your testimony could be used in a mighty and a powerful way to give someone a desire to get out of the lifestyle. I would not encourage people just to get on out there and walk the streets in the different neighborhoods, and you've never studied, you never taken any class, you're not prepared. And with that, you got to understand, the pimps will hide in these neighborhoods as well, while their girls, what they call their girls, are out there working. They may be hanging out in Jack in the Box. They may be hanging out in McDonald's. You don't even know that they're there until you've been trained, then you can spot them. Because while you think you're trying to minister to the girls or whoever you're trying to minister to, they got their eye on you. And that's why men cannot stop these girls and have a long conversation, because you get these girls beat up. They have a conversation with a man and there's no money being exchanged. You can set them up to get beat up. Brother Armand.
Yes, I'm listening to you. I have to speak in opinions. I'm really speaking from mine. This and my experience. This is not cookie cutter. So the way it's not like the pimps act this way. It's not. They're human beings. We're all human beings. It's like me saying this one cop is the example of all cops, and they all act that way. Now, I know some good cops. I know some bad cops. I know a great doctor. I know some bad doctors. I know a good preacher. I know a bad preacher. And I know quite a few preachers that used to be pimps. So used to be drug dealers, but they were saved, and now they're utilizing that word they were using for wrong now for the right. And some who just crossed over, and for multiple reasons. In my experience and the hundreds of pimps that I know and people that I know really closely, none of them chose violence or force to make somebody be in the game with them. And from the where I come from, the women and men got into the game mostly a lot of differences. They got in for the same reasons, and a lot of them based out of poverty. I know I have close women, friends, family members who are in the game with no pimp. It's not a pimp making this girl all the time. Matter of fact, most girls that I know today don't have pimps. So the root causes, which are never addressed, that lead people down that lifestyle, need to be addressed. And I also, just looking around, I can't see most of y'all faces, but I see a group of women here. If I'm reading the names correctly, I don't really see another man name except for me and the bishop right now. So that's not bad or good. If you look into the people with the most hearts in the situations of social work, of nursing, of you see women, because I think they are the natural caregivers, the lovers of people. You see them, and in this human trafficking movement, you see mostly women. And then if I really narrow that down, I see mostly white women. So I also cannot leave this conversation without addressing that, point it out, not good or bad, but just let's be conscious of that. So most definitely, I don't believe y'all are in a position to go talk to the type of pimp I think me and Bishop are talking about. But that doesn't mean you don't do the work. Now, helping with like a football team, everybody has their position to play. I ask people often, what is the key position of it, the most valuable position of a football team? And most people will go the quarterback. And I'll be like, what's the quarterback without the water boy? That's not that every single position matters. Some coaches in the game in the NFL have never played the game in their life, but they know how to call plays. There's some play, the owner of the team just supplies the finances, the resources, the cheerleaders, the fans, the support system. So find your role. You don't have to help in this. You don't have to be everybody to everybody. Find where you're best suited and where your passion is to help. If it's women's ministry, that's great. You might not be the one to directly impact the pimps. And I really want you to do your research and learn if this is where you want to be at and you want to help. Learn root issues. This is not a new problem with human trafficking. It is at the root of American culture. Black, white, America was founded on human trafficking, sex trafficking. This country is the biggest trafficker there's been that I know of in the past 600 years. So it's not new. It's not, oh, this explosion of trafficking is happening. In Las Vegas, it's been legal for years. You could still go get a prostitution license in Las Vegas right now. So across some borders, it's legal and some it's not. Even in my city in California, in San Diego, you could go get an in-call, out-call license right now and pay your taxes to the city and go escort. So it's not a legal issue. And these a couple of things I just wanted to throw out there to make sure we want to let's learn as much as we can about the type of trafficking we want to help with, because they are different. Do you just want to service people in general, which is cool too, but know your position. What in your position being not put you in your place, but where's your passion? Where are you best suited to do the help and administering the help? And sometimes you just might be a great supporter of the people doing the work in the fields, in the field. Like myself, I got my cleats on back on the football. I'm out there with my feet getting dirty, but I need Susan. I need her support. I need her help. We need this platform to be able to talk to you all. But find your position in this fight. Help. It's not cookie cutter. It's not these pimps doing this, prostitutes doing that. They're human beings, and let's address them as human beings. Let's help them as human beings. Not I'm better than. Or this person needs to come up to my level. I'm sure there's a lot of former somethings on this call right now, so we're not no better or no worse. But we do have a heart and we want to help people. So just being open to that. Thank you. My rant is done for that moment.
Everything you say is really valuable. And I really want to take the opportunity to acknowledge Armand for his courage to come speak about anti-human trafficking, given his background.
Yeah. I have been very curious about why we don't treat children in gangs, right? These are like, I live right outside of Kensington in Philadelphia, which is like heroin capital of the US every other year. And there's like 8, 9, 10-year-old kids being used to sell drugs, being used to recruit kids out of their school for trafficking, selling kids during recess. And it just seems like the force, fraud, and the coercion are there. I know under Pennsylvania law, they include the Romeo pimp of like, fraud includes painting a picture of a family that doesn't wind up happening, or a romance that doesn't wind up happening. So I don't know why, we don't have any deterrent programs. We don't have any courts, especially for kids in gangs, to get them services instead of time in jail or time in, the juvenile correction facility. And then on top of that, we have the kids in our juvenile correction facility are now being sexually exploited by the guards and being sued right now. Reported it to programs, nobody helped them. So I'm just curious, how we can kind of advocate for a broader, if we can change policies, that'll start to change perspectives, at least to the people that have to listen to the policy. And we've seen that be really successful with prostitution laws. I'm just curious with gang related laws, especially when you're working with youth. It's like, yeah, I don't think they should be criminalized when they're kids. So I was just curious if you guys have any insight.
You know what? I'm going to go ahead and say a lot of it stems from the neighborhood, the home. I believe the first teachers are the parents. I truly believe that. It's not the schools, not the church. The first parents or first teachers should be the parents teaching the children what's right and what's wrong. A lot of times the parents may not even know that their children are in gangs. I had two of my brothers that were banging. I didn't know. I was away in college. When I came back, it still took a few months before I found out that they were jumped into a gang. And I'm like, really? What is this about? Okay. Like Brother Armand said, we were raised up in the house of God, but yet, you know, we're saved, but we were saved, but you couldn't tell we were saved. And I think the missing piece was discipleship, which means you have to become a student, and the child has to know that they are not just a child, but a student. Okay, their parents are teaching them. When they go to school, they're supposed to learn and be students. And so even with people who are raised in the church, it takes a long time before they plug into discipleship, which means you can go through the motions. Religion will allow you to go through the motions, but when you get plugged into reading that word and obeying the word, you know, God says he corrects and he disciplines those who belong to him. So one way or another, God does step in and intervene, and discipline is a part of God's program. But parents need to really be more involved, I believe. They need to really watch their child, talk to them, communicate with them. My mom used to always tell us, you know, watch who you're hanging with. And for us, we'd go in one ear, out the other. Mom, if they're doing something, that's them, not me. But the system is set up to get you and everybody in the group, whether you're guilty or not. If they catch 5 of you, 2 could be guilty, but they're trying to book all 5 and give all 5 time. They get paid for making sure the beds are filled in the jail system.
We do have courts for kids in Philly for girls who are dependent or delinquent and have suspected trafficking. And what they'll do is they actually expedite them into services in place of going to juvenile correction. And when they turn 18, they'll extend the child protective services and they put them into a trafficking specific housing, recovery housing, to try to keep them out of the system. That's just gonna, you know, it's gonna be networking in jail or networking in juvie with other behaviors that aren't helpful. So I was just curious why we have that for prostitution or for trafficking, but we don't have that for gang related activities.
Joy, let me answer that for you. I got you. Thank you for pointing that out. Okay. And 100%. And even after this call, everyone on here, challenge you to go Google a service for a young man to get out of pimping. Go Google and find a service anywhere in the United States that targets or helps young men, men in trafficking. Look that up. You'll find trafficking men that were trafficked, but find one service that's for the young man that was getting involved in pimping. If you find one, please send it to me. I've tried over and over throughout the years since 2014. They don't exist. So what we're speaking on and what you're talking about with gangs, the services that are offered to these young folks, the different court, all over the United States, there's a court diversion program for young women in the life.
Yeah.
The answer when you talk to these courts or law enforcement or systems about the men, and specifically young Black men in the community, in the hood, in the impoverished community, it's jail. And these are systemic issues. This is not a new solution. This has been the solution for our country before our lifetime, okay, is incarceration. So what you see is a continuation of a racist system that is designed to incarcerate impoverished Black males, poor people. It has not changed. The same. Be it trafficking, be it drugs, we have criminalized, penalized these communities forever. here.
So aren't we just saying we're fighting trafficking and then we're fueling prison slavery?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like as
So
an
yeah,
abolitionist, I'm like, what can I do?
100%. So this is this issue is huge. It's systemic. It's not a one answer for us. It is policy. It is education. It is, as Bishop said, in the household with the parents. It's all these issues. So when I rewind back to when I said, for the folks here, for the sake of doing something, find where your passion is. Your passion may be with parent counseling, which is needed. Your might be the education system. Your passion may be systems, but they're all needed because this issue is so big and it was designed bigger than us. We're here as little us, like, what do we see problems? How do we fix it? And it's huge. It's in that school system that's poorly educating them from preschool, that helps lead them down that preschool to prison pipeline is oh so real. And so how is that proper education happening there? What policies are set up? These laws that were set up, pimping and prostitution, pimping has been here for decades. When laws start getting made to incarcerate and to target, like, it's just all these awareness meetings and things have just recent years started happening, but by design, for us to start looking at them. People weren't selling crack cocaine like they were in the community. Gang banging, people start looking at and incarcerating people for gang issues as harshly. How do we keep these prisons filled? As America, please name me one industry that we are the lead of in this world. Is it oil? Is it manufacturing? Is it technology? Not a one. Prisons. We have more prisons in the United States than the entire world combined. The land of the free, home of the brave. There is a reason. There are they say, go to the, if you want to solve a problem, go to the person that's find out, research who's benefiting off that problem. Who is benefiting off the incarceration of these young people? They say they know how many beds they're going to have filled in 10 years based off a third grade reading level of people in the hood, right? So there's a system that's bigger than us. So, but that does not mean, oh, shoot, we can't do nothing. This is too big for us. Find your position. Let's help as many as we can and do our part while God blesses us with our breath in our body. But this is big. And what you're pointing to, don't burn yourself out. But find your passion. Where can you help? And please jump in and help. But you are spot on, okay?
All right. So one of the things I want to bring up in here that is in my book is what we need if we're going to end any social issue is to duplicate working models. So there's 3 working models I know of that were started in the church to address what you're talking about, Joy, is these young boys are like child soldiers in terms of, you know, how but except the child soldiers get help. In this country, we don't. We incarcerate them. You know, we have an issue in this country with fatherless families. We have the highest rate of fatherless families in the world. So mentoring makes a difference. And that's the premise upon which the Boston 10-Point Coalition was started out of a church by a pastor who was a former gang leader. And as a result of getting the community together in the churches, what he did was this, it was really courageous. Pastor Rivers he was in a community, a Black community with the highest crime rate in all of Boston. And most of the law enforcement in Boston are Catholic because Boston's, you know, a Catholic town, and a lot of Irish Catholics. So he went to the Catholic Archdiocese in Boston and said, could you talk to the police, because they knew them, you know, who are executives in the police department, that when you pick up a Black youth, instead of taking them directly to juvie, you bring them to our church. And they did that. And they told these young men the program they had to be in. Bishop Gale Oliver talked about the parents. They operated like the parents. You know, they had to do their homework. They couldn't gangbang, all these rules. And if they didn't follow them, they called the police and had the police come and pick them up and take them to juvie. They saved 9 out of 10. As a result of this effort, they reduced violent crime in all of Boston. All of Boston went down by 79%, which is a miracle. All the federal money in the world we've thrown at this issue hasn't even come close to 79%. That's the Boston 10-Point Coalition. Then we have the Dream Center, which is in Los Angeles, very similar. They fed them, they brought them in, they gave these, you know, drug addicts, youth who are involved in crime, they helped them get jobs, they did all of this, and they reduced crime in their area by 73%. And then we have Homeboy Industries, which a lot of people are familiar with because of the book, Tattoos of the Heart, very inspiring, that Father Gregory Boyle started, that has won the President's Award year after year because of the difference he's making with gangs. And he brings them in and he loves them. He gives them jobs. He went out to the community and he said to the business owners, you can continue to complain about the fact that they're robbing your businesses and breaking the windows, or you can help me help them and get them jobs. His motto being nothing stops a bullet like a job. So here are 3 examples that were started out of churches where the pastor really took on being a community leader, where they are rehabilitated the way that both Armand and Bishop Gale Oliver described, in a very loving way, bringing Jesus to these youth and giving them, but being practical, not just bringing Jesus, giving them jobs, helping them. And one of the things that's interesting about Homeboy Industries, one of the requirement is they make sure that when they bring these youth in, that they work together with another gang member who was their enemy, and they become best friends. So you have the, competing gang members or whatever, and he understands gangs. So he would say, what gang were you part of? Got it. Okay, what gang were you part of? Got it. Okay, you two are enemies. He made them work together in the bakery or whatever thing they have. And one of the things we can do for these industries like Homeboy Industries is churches have asked them to cater their events. That's how you support Homeboy Industries. So there's a lot we can do. Again, it's a matter of understanding how we connect, how we interface. We can make a huge difference because, well, it used to be 51% of people attended a church in the US. It's now down to, I think, 46% because of COVID, because they haven't returned yet. But half the population in the US claiming to be church-going Christians, if the churches started making these kinds of opportunities available, I think it could make a huge difference. And like Armand said, it's systematic. We need to get to the source. And these churches have gotten to the source. So go ahead, Liddell, your question.
Susan, really quick before we move on and get a new question. So throwing this out there, and I have, so earlier on when we first started, I know most people weren't here, but I do have a book out called Raised in Pimp City, and the truth about domestic urban human sex trafficking, that goes into root causes, where we're at now currently with pimping and prostitution from the urban standpoint of America, and it also offers solutions. So I strongly suggest getting that in your arsenal so you can first understand.
Yes,
and not just understand, but coming soon, what I'm working on is a it's for churches to have a turnkey program that they can offer the youth, offer people, and that it's called Walk With Me Impact, and it'll be come January, February. It's in a faith-based version of this curriculum for churches will be available for you, so you can be that a version of that Homeboy Industries right there where you're at. So you can help those youth right there where you're at. Like I said, the youth we're talking about later on down the line, or the people that get into pimping, get into gangbanging, they're in your church now. So let's help them before and prevent them from ever even going down those paths.
Beautiful. And anyone who's a leader in this should read Armand's books, because there's nothing like it. No one's, people aren't talking about systematic issues from having lived it. His book is transformational and something that I definitely will be promoting. And so is Walk With Me. And what I love about it is with churches, you need turnkey programs. Churches aren't nonprofits. They don't have the resources to get together and develop a program. So in the book that I wrote, The Role of the Church in Ending Human Trafficking, that book, about 30% of it is nothing but resources, like, programs churches can buy for not a whole lot of money, that's turnkey. Well, they'll be trained to do it, where they can really make a difference. And I know church has been wanting things like this. They want to do more, but they feel very limited in what they're able to do. And this really opens up their thinking. So go ahead, Armand, you wanted to say something about what I said? You look like you wanted to say something. Okay, good. All right, Liddell.
Good morning. This is great. I have a question and a request of Armand and Gale. My question is, I have heard that trafficking, the traffickers, a lot of times it's generational. Dad was a pimp. You mentioned, Gale, that this one pimp you were talking to, his mom was a prostitute. Maybe grandfather was a pimp. Could one of you or both of you comment on that? And then my request is, can you please give us some specific examples of success stories with helping pimps get out of the life?
I'll go ahead and start with when you mention generational, there is a such thing called generational curses. There's generational blessings and generational curses. One of my cousins, when I was growing up, he's just a little older. He was a little older than I am, but he was a pimp. He was a fighter, if you would. He was a one-man gang, basically. But one of the things I noticed is he was one of those type of pimps where the family knew what was going on, but nobody said anything. Nobody educated us on what we were looking at. My mother just happened to tell me that one of the girls he brought to our house, she was on the streets, and not only was he using her to make money, but she was also on drugs, and both of them were on drugs, actually. And so in that, he wind up dying of AIDS, probably, sleeping with all the girls on the streets like that, his girls. And the very street that he was doing his work on, he ran the street in Bakersfield, and his son had done like 20, 25 years in prison. And after his dad had passed, which is my second cousin got out of prison, he wind up running that same block that his dad ran. Okay. And so what was crazy to me is all the stuff he did, no one in the family broke it down to us as children. So some of us like, oh man, he has money, he has all these girls, we want to be like him. So his son definitely picked up everything his dad was doing. He wanted to be like his dad. And 2 or 3 years ago, the same block his dad ran, had his girls on that street. When my cousin was running that street, walking off that same street, before he got off that street, some gangs pulled up on him and shot him in the head and killed him. Okay. And so generational curses. Okay. He learned how to run the streets, how to run girls. He learned it from his dad, and then he started doing it. And so we do have to understand there's generational curses as well as blessings, but gangbanging is definitely, it goes from great grandpa, father, and all the brothers. So even with that scenario right there, a friend of mine, his dad was in prison because he was selling dope, and so his dad got caught up, was in prison doing 20 years. So he was waiting on his dad to get out of prison. Okay. But he was doing the same thing his daddy was doing. He was a kingpin. Okay. So he's waiting on his dad to get out so he can hook his dad up. He has brothers and everything in the game. And so just as his dad was getting out, he got caught and he got a fresh 20. So now he looked at it like this: the devil then stole 40 years from my family. He started praying against, he prayed, I don't want my brothers. He wanted his whole family out of the game. He did not want another family member to have to go to prison. So his dad did 20, he did 20. He got out of prison. He's a pastor now. None of his brothers had to go to prison, jail or prison, because he started living a lifestyle, and he started praying for each and every one of his siblings and letting them know, you don't want to be here, get out the game, use the gifts God has given you. And so we do have to acknowledge, yes, there's generational curses. Some girls will do what they see their mothers do or their best friends doing. And I wanted to make a point real quick. There's different, like I said, there's 3 different types of pimps. I've met CEO pimps, I've met guerrilla pimps, and I've met Romeo pimps. And one of the things we have to understand is they're constantly changing strategies. So as soon as we say, oh, they're doing this, now they'll do something else. They're changing strategies, right? One of the things is girls used to get beat up a lot back in the days, used to get black eyes, busted lips. One of the new strategies is this. They no longer give them black eyes or busted lips, but they can twist their ankles, break their ankles, or break their kneecaps. And so a lot of times you'll see girls on the block, on the street, on crutches, trying to sell their body, okay? Cast on the ankle or cast on the knee. See what I'm saying? And I know this to be true as well. And my niece wind up going through that and didn't want to tell us the truth, but glory be to God, months later, it's like, wait a minute, how did you say you twisted your ankle or fractured your ankle? And so found out her Romeo pimp had, she broke one of the rules, whatever that rule was. He twisted her ankle, fractured her ankle. Okay, so there's things that we need to pay attention to. And I said back, going back to the parents really need to pay attention, especially to their daughters, okay, who they're dating. A lot of times the parents are not even, meeting the boyfriend, so-called boyfriends. So now this girl been dating somebody for 6 months. Now she disappears and they don't even have a description for who the boyfriend was, okay? And so we do have to make sure that we're paying attention, talk to the children, have table talk like we used to do when we were growing up. Find out, a lot of times when these girls are going through something like that, their personality changes somehow. See what I'm saying? They may become quiet. They may look like they're going through a depression. So pay attention to our children. And one more point I wanted to make is this too. Like when we were on Harbor Boulevard in our city, Santa Ana, Harbor Boulevard has been plagued with prostitution since like 1975. We got involved as pastors, as church, and we always had 2 undercover police officers with us. It took about 5 years of ministering every week out there. Now Harbor Boulevard is clean. One of the ladies online, she was talking about, I think Kingston, Pennsylvania. She mentioned, I think, heroin and method, but that is, I believe, the #1 capital for fentanyl. Okay.
Yeah.
That city, I'm saying, of course you're going to, let me share this. If you find people who are on drugs, a lot of times they embrace prostitution, even males. If they have drug problems, they don't have the money to purchase the drugs, they may sell their own body to get their drugs. So it's like one of them vicious cycles, but once God gives you discernment on how to minister to each person, realize that the problem is a problem, but we have a solution. I'm going to say something a lot of people may not believe, but we used to have police officers come, gang unit officers come and train us at our church, right? One of the craziest things I heard is a lot of police officers don't want to get rid of the problem. Because there's like, let's say there's 300 people on the gang unit. If you got rid of the gangs, what happens to those 300 officers? See what I'm saying? And so another problem is the system makes money off of fulfilling the jail beds and the prison beds. So each empty bed costs them money instead of making them money. So this is a cycle. Got to fill these beds, got to fill these beds, got to fill these beds. So I'm in agreement. Thank God for Dream Center. I know what they're doing works. Had a friend of mine could have, continued in the mafia, but God ministered to him. Dream Center said, hey, come on, we'll let you get out of prison and come here. We'll train you. Once you've made it through probation, if you want to stay here, you have to go out and evangelize every day. So you have an option, a way to get your life together and make it happen financially. And I'm going to say this one more time: transitional housing and permanent housing. Transitional housing is a perfect place to minister to people and to help them as they're going through the ministry. Yeah, they go through drug testing, but there's also a program that helps them save money. So by the time they have, by the time they finish the program, they have at least $10,000 in a bank account to help them get an apartment and, start life off in the right direction. So with that, I feel like I'm talking too long, but go ahead, because you can't tell it all.
Can I make 2 quick comments? Number one, I'm very familiar with the Santa Ana track on Harbor. I used to go out, and I know you know him, Pastor Kevin.
Yep.
We went out when there were people out there, And today I go out with another organization, Gems Uncovered, and they do a street outreach on Figueroa. And I go out with them and talk to the women on the streets. And I had the opportunity, well, police officer in a car just called me over to talk to him. It was nothing. And I asked him about what they're doing to stop trafficking in the area, because without going into details, they're starting to do the same approach Santa Ana did to get rid of the demand. And he said, oh, no, he said with SB 357, which I assume everybody knows what that is.
No, if they
said,
don't live
no.
in California, they actually don't. So we legalize street prostitution in California is what we do. Go ahead.
So that's effective January 1st. And he said right now, and I think because the police have been kind of beat down too, and they said right now all we're doing is trying to get the guns off the street. So I think they've, at least the information I got from that one policeman, that was their approach.
And they've done that a few times. You know, I think they have one this weekend. Turn your gun in for free, no questions asked or anything. But
Yeah, so we have, hold on just a second, Bishop. We have 5
Yeah.
minutes left. So I'd like to give each of you, Bishop, you can start 2 minutes, you and then Armand, anything you like to say just to be complete, anything that hasn't been said or anything that you think people should know before we complete today. Go ahead.
Amen. Thank you so much. I'm still learning from Sister Susan. I'm learning from Brother Armand, and it's amazing. As you hear the truth, your gift gets stirred up. But I would say make sure you lead by example. You love people. People don't care how much you know until you know how much you care. Get trained. Don't just jump out there in those streets. Western and Figueroa are dangerous places to be. A lot of people get killed on those streets. You don't hear much about it, but a lot of girls get killed. A lot of people get killed. My niece, when she was trying to get out of the lifestyle, one of the guys shot at her. She drove right into the back of a bus. If you see the car, it's amazing that the 3 people in the car are still alive. But they, when she got shot at, everything I was telling her became real. So thank God she's still out of the lifestyle. Has a boyfriend, which is awesome, living in another state, which is awesome. So I would say this: make sure you do your studying and praying. Don't go out there trying to be Superman or Wonder Woman by yourself. Teamwork makes the dream work, and it's a blessing that our sister went from helping on Harbor to now helping out on Figueroa. That's a blessing. Brother Armand has awesome perspectives, and I think something he said makes a whole lot of sense. What are you going to do to help the person get back in life? Help them make money, help them to take care of themselves, put them in position, or help them get in position where they can fend for themselves without depending on the gang to take care of them, or gang activity, or pimping, or prostituting. And that's one of the biggest issues, period, especially in Santa Ana. The places are so expensive. But what is that? How do we help in that area? How do we help other people start their own business, since that's what they're doing anyway? They just don't realize it. But how do we help them? And I like that other concept, help me help you. You mentioned Brother Pastor Boyle, Homeboy, what is it? Homeboy Enterprise, something like that. Industry. Yeah. They've been doing a lot of good work for a lot of years. Dream Center has been doing a lot of work for many years. They have a location in Los Angeles. They have a location in Arizona. They're doing the work. Amen. You want to interview them, go find out what they're doing. It's working. So I think once you want to help people, it's not about punishing people, but you want to help them. You don't want them to have to go do life in prison or get killed for nothing, right? You want to help them. You want to help these girls, the males. So that's why I say, let us go out there and be lead lovers. Bring Jesus to the pimps, the gangbangers, and trust me, if God can't deliver you, you can't be delivered. So glory be to God. There's nothing too hard for God. If he can save me, he can save you, he can save anybody. And so I thank God for these opportunities to educate people. You can reach me at my email address is lovely3013@sbcglobal.net. And from the prison perspective, I wrote a book called The Gift of Time. I was able to see God turn lives around, from pimps to gangbangers to even mafia leaders. God is amazing. Amen. So once again, that book is called The Gift of Time. And I thank God for each and every one of you. And I pray next time each one tell somebody else, each one tell one. Amen. And let's continue to educate on how to prevent and how to rescue. God bless
Thank you. Armand, anything you'd like to say to be complete?
Yes, just gardener. We can't snip. If you're a gardener or been involved with gardeners and you have weeds in your garden and you just snip the weed, you're going to constantly get that weed regrowing. Until you uproot the weed, you're not going to get rid of it. So let's look at the root causes. What brings people to even think that pimping and prostitution is fair seeming for their life? Focus on that. In my 12 years of work doing this work, I have I've helped all spectrums from senior citizens to babies, right? And right now, where my heart and passion is guiding me is preventing people from ever going down these paths in the first place. It is much harder to get somebody out of the life than it is to stop somebody from ever going in the first place. So that's where I'm focusing my attention. And I hope y'all join me with let's help prevent people from ever going down these paths in the first place. Thank you, Susan, for having this forum and the forums you do. Thank you for your passion in this movement. And let's actually make this, let's leave here today and not just applaud our hands. This was a good show, a good speech. Thank you, Bishop. Thank you, Armand King, for coming and talking to us and just do something in your own space with your own passion. Do something from here, from what you heard from Bishop Oliver, from what you heard from myself, from Susan. Please do something. And that's it. Definitely want to stay in contact with you all. Armand King is my name. You can find me anywhere, social media platform. I'm on all of them. You reach out to me if you need to directly for other questions. We are now family, being a part of this. If you want to, get that, I repeat, and even it's not a money thing. This isn't a shout out for the book, but message me and say, I can't afford the book. I'll send you a copy. You need to understand, if you want to be in this, you need to understand it. It is not cookie cutter. It is not this pimp, all pimps are this way because this one dude was like that. Or all prostitutes or people in the game were like she was because all girls were like that. It's not that case. So understand what the field and the industry you're getting yourself into. Thank you. Much love. You guys should try, if you're away from home, travel safe getting back home. If you're home, God bless you in your home. All right. That's it. Thank you, Susan.
Thank you, both of you. It's really been an honor and privilege to be with you both. You're just really, I'm so inspired and uplifted by listening to you. And I know I speak for everyone, and I want to acknowledge all of you who are here today for saying yes to God in your journey to fight human trafficking, for taking the time to be here. And I just want to pray that God blesses everything that you do.